Salwete ladies. Today your lesson is going to be on a new mood of the verb. We are going to learn the present subjunctive today, and then we are going to learn two uses of the subjunctive, the jussive subjunctive and the purpose clause. Okay, so let's start by talking about what the subjunctive mood is. Okay, subjunctive mood is a mood like the indicative and the imperative. So remember, the indicative mood tells you just general statements and questions. Imperatives give commands. The subjunctive, sort of in general, shows an action that is unreal, potential, tentative, hypothetical, or ideal. Now, don't get too wrapped up in that definition, because the more practical use of the subjunctive is going to be in subordinate clauses, and we'll talk more about that in a bit. The subjunctive verb can be used either as the main verb of a sentence or as the verb in a subordinate clause. Now, what I mean by the main verb in the sentence, that's an independent use, okay? An independent use of the subjunctive. That's where the subjunctive verb is the main verb of the sentence, okay? There are some examples of independent uses of the subjunctive, which include the jussive subjunctive, the optative subjunctive, and the volative subjunctive. The only one you'll be learning in this book is the jussive subjunctive. You can also use a subjunctive verb in a subordinate clause, and that is called a dependent use of the subjunctive, because it's in a subordinate clause. A subordinate clause depends on a main clause to hang off of, right? So dependent use of the subjunctive in a subordinate clause. Some examples of the dependent use of the subjunctive include purpose clauses, result clauses, cum clauses, indirect question, indirect command, all of which you're going to learn this year, but for this chapter only, you're going to learn the purpose clause. Okay, so another thing you need to know about the subjunctive before we sort of launch into how to form it and all that stuff is that the subjunctive mood only has 4 tenses. Now, this isn't that weird, actually, right? Because the indicative mood has 6 tenses, but the imperative mood only has 1 tense, right? The present. The indicative has 6. It has the present, imperfect, future, perfect, pluperfect, and future perfect. The subjunctive mood only has 4 tenses because there are no future or future perfect subjunctives, okay? So you only have the present, imperfect, perfect, and pluperfect subjunctives, and today we're actually only learning one of those tenses. Today we are going to learn how to form the present, active, and passive subjunctive. Okay, so how to form the present subjunctive. To form both the active and the passive present subjunctive, you need to replace the indicative vowel for the subjunctive vowel, and then you add either the active or the passive endings, okay? So what do I mean by indicative vowel? Well, for the first 2 conjugations, that would be the vowel that is on the end of the stem. For the third IO, and fourth, that would be essentially the I, right? It's the vowel that tells you you're in the present. So A, E, I are the indicative vowels for first, second, third IO, fourth. You're going to replace that vowel with the subjunctive vowel to make the present subjunctive. Okay, so that means the only difference between the indicative and the subjunctive is a vowel, at least in the present tense. The following little chart tells you which vowel you're going to use for the subjunctive verb in the present subjunctive. So first conjugation verbs, you use an E. Second conjugation, the present subjunctive vowel is an EA. Third is an A. Third IO, fourth is an IA. Okay, and I'm going to show you how this works in the next slide. However, before we move on, a nice mnemonic device to help remember that first, second, third IO, fourth is EAAIA is we fear a giant. So first, first conjugation, second conjugation, third conjugation, third IO, fourth conjugation. And this is how you're going to know that your verb is in the present subjunctive, because if it's a first conjugation verb, it's going to have an E. Second, it's going to have an EA. Third, it's going to have an A. Fourth or third IO, an IA. Okay, so now I go through and show you the present active subjunctive for each conjugation. Laudo, laudare, obviously, is a first conjugation verb, which means that the E is going to tell you that you're in the subjunctive, and then you add the personal ending. So laudem, laudace, laudet, laudamus, laudatus, laudent. Okay? The present passive, again, you have that E showing you that you're in the present subjunctive, and then you have the passive personal ending. So are, ris, ter, mer, many, inter. I should point out to you that there is an alternative second person singular ending, which is not RIS but RE. So I'll have them on these charts, just so you know. So for laudo, it's laudem, laudace, laudet, laudamus, laudatus, laudent. In the passive, laudere, laudaris, laudere, third, laudetur, laudamor, laudamini, laudentor. And again, how do we know that we're in the present subjunctive? Because we have an E in this first conjugation verb. Second conjugation, the subjunctive vowels are EA. So moniam, with the second conjugation verb. Moniam, monias, moniat. Moniamus, moniatus, moniant, right? And then with the passive endings for the present passive subjunctive, moniar, moniaris, moniator, moniamor, moniamini, moniantor. Third conjugation, right? ERA without macron. The subjunctive vowel is an A, so we know we're in the present subjunctive because we have the A ending on the active and the passive. So agam, agas, agat, agamus, agatus, agant. And in the passive, agar, agaris, agator, agamor, agamini, agantor. Third IO, the subjunctive vowel is an IA, so capiam, capias, capiat, capiamus, capiatus, capiant. And in the passive, capiar, capiaris, capiator, capiamor, capiamini, campiantor. And then we have our fourth conjugation verb. Also has an IA in the present subjunctive, active and passive. So audiam, audias, audiat, audiamus, audiatus, audiant. And in the passive, audiar, audiaris, audiator, audiamor, audiamini, audiantor. Okay, so now that you know how to form the present subjunctive, what you need to know is how to use subjunctive verbs. One way you can use a subjunctive verb is as the main verb of a sentence. That's called an independent use of the subjunctive. And the only independent use of the subjunctive that we are going to learn in this book is the jussive subjunctive. Okay? So when that is the main sentence, the main verb in the sentence, it is the use of the subjunctive is this jussive subjunctive. You can make a negative jussive subjunctive by putting the conjunction nay at the beginning of the sentence. And what is a jussive subjunctive? A jussive subjunctive is a soft command or a suggestion. It doesn't quite have the same push as an imperative verb. Imperatives, of course, being hard commands, whereas this is a soft command or a suggestion. Therefore, the jussive subjunctive translates as, in the first person singular, let me. Second person singular, let you. Third person singular, let him, let her, let it, let their, whatever. First person plural, let us. Second person plural, let y'all. And the third person plural, let them. By the way, the let us is a particular type of subjunctive, a particular type of jussive subjunctive called the hortatory, which is good to know. And there you go. So why don't we look at a couple examples of the jussive subjunctive in use. We can tell it's the jussive subjunctive because here it is as the main verb in the sentence. Discipulae Latinam bene discant. We know this is the present subjunctive and it's the main verb, so we're going to translate it let them. This one happens to have a subject in the nominative, so let the students learn Latin well. Okay. So the second one, omnes fidelissimi a populo laudentur. Why don't you try figuring this one out? We have our subjunctive verb. It's the main verb of the sentence, so we know it's got to be a jussive. Does it have a subject? Yes, it does. Omnes fidelissimi. So let all the most faithful men be praised by the people. Now, in this last example, we have our subjunctive verb, but then we also have the conjunction ne at the beginning of it, so we know this is going to be a negative jussive. Let us not do this. So let's not do this. Okay. The most common use of the subjunctive, however, is going to be in a subordinate clause, okay? The dependent use of the subjunctive, meaning that it's the verb in a subordinate clause. And we're going to learn the first of those today. That is a purpose clause. Purpose clauses indicate the objection of the action of the main verb, okay? So what's the point of the main verb? What's the purpose to it? You make a purpose clause because it is a dependent subordinate clause. You need to have a conjunction set it up. That conjunction is going to be ut, or a negative purpose clause is set up with ne. Now you can translate ut a number of ways. You can translate it in order to, in order that, to, so that someone may, or just that. And when you're combining it, and when you have ne, excuse me, not combining, but just have ne, it's in order to not, in order that something not happen, to not whatever, so that something not, so that something may not, so on and so forth. So let's look at a couple examples, okay? Multos libros legimus ut multa discamus. Okay, so we have a legimus here. This is an indicative verb, and it's the main verb of the sentence. So we read multos libros, many books, ut. Now we have the conjunction ut and a subjunctive verb, which means we have a subordinate subjunctive clause, and the only one you know so far is a purpose clause. Okay, so this is going to tell us what's the purpose of we read many books. Well, we read many books so that we may learn multa, many things. Remember, it can be translated a number of different ways. So I could have translated that we read many books in order to learn many things, in order that we learn many things, so that we learn many things. Anyway, just there's a lot of different options for this. Let's look at this next sentence. Discadet ne in periculo remaneat. Discadet is our main verb. It's indicative. So we go away in order that, excuse me, not we, silly myself. He goes away so that he not remain in danger. Okay? In order that he not remain in danger. He goes away in order to not remain in danger. But we have the conjunction ne, meaning that we have to make it negative. And then our last one, omnes homines moniantur ne erent. We have a subjunctive verb as the main verb and as the subordinate verb. So let all men be warned so that they do not make a mistake. All right, ladies, I will see you tomorrow in class. Come with any questions and have a good night.